Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and in this video I'm going to do the character review for Kallavan. As usual, I'm going to go over the different points. I'm going to talk about how good this unit is. We're going to look at the skills, equipment, gear, ignition weapon, rapport, revolution, and then finally a showcase. We have the same problem as the VO's video, so the deficit is not that high and it doesn't hold much relevance, I'd say, but still might be worthwhile. There are some things that I wanted to mention, so there will be a showcase here as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get started with how good this unit is. And I will say I gave him an A+ ranking, but this is extremely volatile because he is good at like 200 to 50 deficits. If you have supports that can increase his defense, then he's pretty good. I would say S+ level, probably. If you are 300 or higher, even with those supports, I highly doubt he's going to do anything. So it could be C or B in terms of how impactful he is then. So weird. Unfortunately, this guy is a tank, but he's an extremely selfish one. He only has damage in his kit and a bit of crowd control, but nothing else. It doesn't decrease the enemy resistances. It doesn't buff your allies. It doesn't provoke enemies. It's just a damage dealer with a tank role, which is good because they showed us that they can actually make it so a unit can deal damage even if they're not mage, assassin, or ranged, which is hopeful for white. But for Kallavan himself, I don't think his kit is that crazy and it will only lose value over time. And yeah, that's more or less what I feel. You're free to disagree, let me know in the comments down below, but I think this guy will just lose more and value. It will be great early on, mid game, if you keep on playing at 200, 250 deficit, you can make him work. Sure, but I wouldn't really want to invest in this kind of unit. It's not that worth it from my point of view. So yeah, enough roasting for now. Let's just have a look at the skills and try to see why I'm saying this. So his passive is his most complicated skills, I would say. The rest is just pretty basic. And here, every time he uses a skill or special move, Kallavan unleashes a back bomber, which is going to hit the furthest enemy, dealing 400% of his attack as damage and knocking back the target for 2 seconds. This knockback is actually from the end of the battlefield to your team, so it's actually sort of a pull more than a knockback, but pretty good. Like with this into account, this is good. So yeah, it's going to help in moving enemies that are always staying in the back, that are annoying. You can move them towards your team, which is beneficial in a lot of scenarios. So that's solid. And each time a back bomber activates, Kallavan gains one essence of nothingness, and each essence lasts for 20 seconds, increasing Kallavan attack by 80% and defense by 40%, and sets damage from incoming attacks to 0 if they would deal less than 15% of Kallavan's max HP. This is the most important part, and you really want the enemy attack to be dealing 15% of Kallavan's max HP or less. If the enemies are consistently dealing more than 15% of your max HP, Kallavan is trash. And that's why I'm saying at high deficit, this guy will lose value. Because he relies on these stacks to deal damage, and he will lose one stack, as we can see from the next sentence. If Kallavan receives damage exceeding 15% of his max HP, then an essence of nothingness absorbs the damage instead and disappears. Max 5 essences. So like you will generate like some of these essences, but we'll see also in the videos, is not that quick at generating them, and until then you won't have a lot of defense, so your risk of taking this kind of damage is high, especially when you are like 1, 2 or 3 stacks. A 4 or more maybe is a bit trickier to take this amount of damage, but still possible. So Yeah, and every time you take this amount of damage, is losing a stack, which makes you squishier, deal less damage. And yeah, like if you're at high deficit, you will always take more than 15% max HPS damage, which means you will always be at 0 stacks, which means Kallavan 1 is dying and 2 is not dealing damage even if he hits. So that's the main problem with this guy, I will say. Again, low deficit, like 200, 250, which is not really that low, but let's say mid deficit, is going to excel. As soon as you go high deficits, it's going to be pretty trash. That's just how it is. And when an Essence of Nothingness disappear, it reduces Kallavan's active skill cooldowns by 2 seconds. And yeah, and then we have the Revolution skill, which I guess I understand now how it works, to be honest, but it's not clear how it's worded. But we're going to talk about that once we get to the Revolution part. So yeah, that's the passive. Now for the Rush Bomber, we have Kallavan increases his defense by 80% for 10 seconds. It's the same as 2 Essence of Nothingness. And then fires 4 bombers in front of him in quick succession, each dealing 320% and jolting the target, knocking back enemies hit. And then additionally is going to recover 50% of damage dealt by this skill. Straightforward, simple. The jolting is a bit unfortunate, but is okay. At least the defense increase is a good buff for him. So yeah. Then we have Manifested Resolve. This is going to create an AoE explosion around him. It's going to be a pretty small AoE. Dealing 400% attack as damage 2 times. I would say damage is not the biggest part of this skill. He's then going to get 40% physical resistance and magic resistance for 10 seconds. And also become immune to status effects. And has his basic attack coefficient increased to 300% for 10 seconds. Really solid buffs for him. The physical and magic resistance, you will still want to run him with 100% resistances anyway, but these are going to be helpful to protect against pierce from the enemies or just additional shreds that they might have. So overall, important to have. And the status effect immunity plus basic attack coefficient. While status effect immunity is amazing, basic attack coefficient, I will say I doubt his basic attacks are going to be most of his damage, but it's definitely 300% is not amount to ignore, so it will also deal something with his basic attacks. Only if he has the Essence of Nothingness. Otherwise, his basic attack will, like his stats will be so low, it won't deal damage. Then we have the special move. Kallavan becomes immune to status effects, just to say that you cannot interrupt the cast of this skill. And gather strength, whatever, and then unleashes a powerful punch that deals 400% of his attack as damage 4 times in a circular area, jolting enemies hit, whatever. And when this attack is unleashed, the final hit is guaranteed to hit and stuns enemies hit for 3 seconds. The final hit also has a 40% physical pierce increase. And then we have the Revolution that improves this. So pretty good. I would say the damage is nice only with a lot of Essence of Nothingness. Otherwise, not relevant, and you need Revolution 4. So, yeah. Whatever. It's like a Datauric kind of unit, but it can actually deal a damage that is more relevant than Datauric. So, yeah, that's more or less it. Let's have a look at the exclusive equipment. It gets lifesteal. Not too fond of this because to regen health, it means that you took damage, which is something you should never do with Kallavan. You don't want to take them. If you're taking damage, Kallavan, it just means Kallavan is falling off and you shouldn't be using him. So lifesteal is pretty trash. They should have given him, actually I don't know, because if they gave him, yeah, probably to make it easier to build, either magic resistance or physical resistance would have been better. Lifesteal is just whatever. I don't know. It's okay, whatever. Level 1, Kallavan becomes immune to jolt and stun at the start of the battle. He already has the status effect immunity from one of his active skills. This is just to guarantee, not guarantee, but help you a bit more in getting to the point where you can keep it up all the time, kind of thing. Then we have level 2, attack coefficient of Rush Bomber increases by 50%, which is 250% attack more since it has 5 hits. Not too bad, it's an okay level 2. Level 3, Kallavan's attack and defense are increased by 10% per Essence of Nothingness, plus an additional 10% from level 4, which is an additional 20. So it's 100% attack and 60% defense per stack, up to a maximum of 500% attack and 300% defense. This is really good value, I would say. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the exclusive equipment. If we look at the gear, slot 4, super important, the most important piece here. Slot 2, the second most important piece. And accuracy if you need to hit, like if you need the additional accuracy to hit the enemies. Evasion could be helpful as well. You kind of want to evade, but you will be running Allocasia on him, and we're going to see that in a second for the ignition weapon. So might be okay, not too important, up to you. Up to you at the end. Then let's have a look at the ignition weapon. And as I mentioned already, you want to run 4-piece Allocasia. Is the best set for him so that he can have the, well, additional evasion, it's okay. But he can get the 40% evasion against basic attacks, super important. And then the 30% physical pierce after he evades 5 times. Really, really good effect. I think Allocasia is one of the better sets. And I'm super unhappy that White is going to be magic damage dealer because he won't really benefit a lot from this set. But okay, doesn't matter, this is not a White's video, so let's just focus on Kallavan. And in terms of stats, you want to run, as you already saw, magic resistance slot 4. For slot 5, you want to run physical pierce, and you should try to get 100% physical resistance even without slot 5 physical resistance. This is the idea. This is kind of the stats you want to look for. 100% in both, and as much physical pierce as you can. So yeah, keep in mind that also what you're going to see later with Kallavan, he's going to have these stats. So keep in mind he has a 75% physical pierce, which is not something to ignore considering what we're going to look at in a second, I will say. So yeah, this is pretty much it for the ignition weapon. Then if we look at Rapport, I would say, well, for sure, level 4 for swiftness. Level 5, extremely important for evasion. Just a cheap way to get an additional plus 100 evasion, so you might as well take it. Accuracy, if you need it to hit the enemies, take it, otherwise you can also skip it. And yeah, as I mentioned for Viol, just go all the way, upgrade it. We get a lot of gifts anyway, so it doesn't matter. Just buy it for 1500 Suspendium if you feel like it, and upgrade at least level 6. Well, no, at least level 5, then up to you. So yeah, that's more or less it for Rapport. If we look at Revolution, it's also going to be pretty simple. Effect resistance is nice. It has the status effect immunity, but effect resistance also helps against debuffs. So you might as well get up to 20 levels. I usually just put 10 just because I have enough, I would say, but the more the merrier. So you might as well go for 20 levels. Evasion could be important for him. So it's something you might want to upgrade if you don't have enough evasion. To have more evasion than the enemy accuracy. You might think about leveling that up. I don't really want to, so I didn't. HP recovery per second could come in handy, maybe like 4 levels. But again, as I mentioned, it's the same thing as lifesteal. It doesn't matter on Kallavan, because if he's taking damage, it's already wrong, and he's already going to die, or just not be impactful enough. So HP recovery is good on tanks, just not as good on Kallavan, so I didn't put any single point here either. Then we have, for under the Revolution 4, we have the attack percentage node. Absolutely take it, super important. Crit hit resistance might be beneficial on Kallavan especially, because if the only way the enemy has to go above 15% of your max HP is by critting, then taking this node is going to be absolutely huge. It's a 90% crit hit resistance, meaning enemies in adventure will never crit against you. So yeah, that's already quite huge. So yeah, it's something I would recommend taking if you see that normally your Kallavan doesn't take damage, but every time the enemy crits is taking damage, then take this. But not too important. What's really important is the 20 levels in defense from Revolution 5. So also keep in mind in the showcase that you're going to see, my Kallavan already has 120% additional defense. So yeah, really important, again, for the passive threshold. Recovery received, for the same reason as the HP recovery per second, doesn't make any sense. Special move resistance, you might as well go 20 levels here. To be honest, I still didn't want to unlock the Revolution 6 tier, so I didn't, but this is pretty good, and also max cooldown reduction is really good on him. So yeah, I will say most important nodes, defense, attack, and then these two. Crit hit resistance can also come in handy. Effect resistance, amazing, and evasion just if you need to. Overall, most of his nodes are important. The only really trash ones are recovery received and HP recovery per second. In terms of the main nodes, we have Revolution 4, increase special move pierce by 15% for each Essence of Nothingness, up to 75% special move pierce. This is really super valuable for Kallavan, and this is also what makes him deal a substantial amount of damage. Revolution 5 is decrease each of Kallavan's active skill cooldowns by 1 second at the start of the battle. Now, I think this is worded weirdly. As we saw before, every time he loses an Essence of Nothingness, he reduces active skills cooldown by 2 seconds. And from my point of view, this is going to take that 2 second to 3 second. That's what's happening. But I'm not sure. So again, I cannot really tell 100%. We have no way of testing it, but this is what makes more sense in my head, because this makes no sense unless it is the activation time, because every single skill in the game has a time where it is cast the first time. So maybe this could also be reducing that time by 1 second. So let's say you were supposed to cast the what was that, rush bomber or something at second 8. With this you cast it at second 7, something like that. I don't know which of the two it is. I would lean more into thinking every time you lose an Essence of Nothingness, the cooldown reduction goes from 2 to 3 than the other way. But again, pretty much worthless, I would say, because you don't want to lose the Essence of Nothingness. But again, if you do happen to lose one, maybe against an Eden that he deals max HP based damage, you will definitely lose them. And it's only once every whatever he casts the special move. So at that point, it could be beneficial, but I don't see it as a really super worthwhile investment. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Revolution. Now I would say we can have a super quick look at some fights. And let me see. I think I had one last floor that made a bit of sense. Probably misclicked. Should be this one. Now, this team sucks. In general, is awful. It has no synergies. We have 4 DPS units with a Lozelle, which probably, okay, no, she did have something, but I don't think she had a lot of resistances or whatever. Child Yuri is just trash without the right supports, so she's not really doing much, even though she has a set and all, but she's dealing nothing, so she just dies. Useless unit if you don't have the right supports for her, and they were all in other teams. Then we have a Ren that, thanks God I have Ren, at least there is someone dealing damage here, but okay. Then we have Tromray, and he couldn't deal much in this team because other than Joaquin getting some attack buffs, the others were not really that great as opponents for him. So yeah. And we will see, Like this deficit is nothing. Like for Kallavan is 230, but in general it's like 210. So this deficit is 210 deficit. But you will see already Kallavan at 230 level deficit against the enemy. It will just take damage randomly. Like, and he's already at the stage where he's good, but he's good with supports that boost his defense. So you kind of want to run Albelda with him. That's super weird. So you see, like, look at the damage he's taking. Now he has an essence of nothingness, so he might tank a bit more. There is crowd control coming from Tron Raid that bought him some time to get 3 stacks now, so he's not taking as much damage. But you already saw, like, the build up to get there was crazy. Now he's there, 4 stacks, he's not taking any damage. He lost 2 stacks from a Karaka. He lost another one from Karaka. Like, that guy is a tank. And he could remove those stacks from my Kallavan. And Kallavan again has 120% defense from the subnodes, which is a lot. So, and this is just 230 deficit for him, which is nothing. And this guy is already taking damage, and he cannot really carry at all. Again, with the right team, he will be better. Unfortunately, I couldn't give him Albelda. She was already with Viol, which I think is a much better pair, but whatever. So, whatever. Now, let's go on some other fights. I will show some single fights where I was still using him. Now here the deficit is going to be even lower. And he was in the carry link. He has Albelda too. Keep it in mind, Albelda is going to give him increased defense. And yeah, this team in general is pretty good for Kallavan. This is the same team as the Viol showcase, I would say. Because as I mentioned, I was just changing the DPS that I had in the front line just randomly every now and then, but didn't make any other sense. Now, Albelda is amazing with Kallavan. He's boosting his damage, he's boosting his survivability, which is the most important part. And also the synergy with the skill that blocks enemy attacks 5 times is huge, because she only blocks attacks if the attack is actually dealing like 15% or more of Kallavan's max HP. If it is not hit, like if it's already reduced to 0, it's not blocking it, which is amazing for building up stacks early on. Is really a huge synergy. Plus, just the defense increase already is massive. So yeah, definitely helps. And as you can see, his damage potential is there at this kind of low deficit. But I wouldn't really use him. Like, this is 190. This is 190 is nothing. Like 190 you can use whatever you want. You can carry with low ray if you want. Like, I only said low ray because I had him here. But yeah, you can really use whatever you want. It doesn't matter. So yeah. Also here for ignition weapons, I didn't mention before. Here in the notes I wrote something more. Just in general, I said if you cannot reach 100% physical resistance while running a slot 5 physical pierce, go for slot 5 physical resistance. That's kind of what I mentioned before. And Alokazi is the best in slot, but you can use Sela. Sundance, just because of the active skill, could make sense. Idea or Rafflesia. Rafflesia is not the best one because he already has status effect immunity, so it won't proc that often. But it could help at least early on. So that's kind of the idea. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Unfortunately, I cannot showcase him much, but I hope you at least saw like his shortcomings and what could happen. For sure, Albelda will help him further down the line. Maybe you could even use him at 300 deficit with an Albelda very well built. But I don't think that's worth the effort. I don't think it's worth using an Albelda for a Kallavan. So yeah, that's kind of my point of view. And let me know in the comments if you agree or not. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.